So a guy has a benign brain tumor. He goes to Kaiser to get it taken out. And now?
He will not be able to live an independent life.
He claims the doctor took out something other than the tumor.
It's almost like taking off the wrong leg.
And listen, we'd love to tell you how many people the state of Oregon is monitoring for coronavirus, but we can't because Oregon won't tell us. And whenever we do stories about TriMet, we hear a lot of this.
It'd be great if it was free somehow.
So how much does TriMet really rely on your fares? And 74 years of history torn down in an instant. We're opening up the KGW Vault in honor of the Portland Meadows. Here's the story. All right, it is Friday. What a week. Thanks for being with us. I'm Dan Haggerty. This is the story. Now, this is usually the part, if you're used to watching this show here, this is the part where we tell you how to interact with us, use hashtag HeyDan on Twitter and all that stuff. But let's get right to it tonight because a big development happened on a story that I'm sure you're familiar with, one that's been hanging over Portland for years now. Jeremy Christian, the guy who murdered 2 people on a MAX train in 2017, has been found guilty on all 12 counts against him. 2 of those are first-degree murder. Now, this is the part of the newscast where you're probably used to us putting his face up on the screen for you to see, but you know what? We decided we don't really want to do that tonight because, frankly, I think we've seen enough of this guy since 2017, and you probably agree with that. So let's focus on some other people, like the 2 people who lost their lives, Ricky Best and Talesian Namkai Meche, and Micah Fletcher, who was stabbed in the neck, spent days in the hospital, and bravely testified against his attacker during this. They were attacked for standing up for these 2 young girls, Walia Muhammad and Destiny Mangum, both women of color, one of whom is a Muslim who won't even wear her hijab anymore because she's so scared after that vicious racial slurs that were hurled in her direction that day. Let's focus on them and focus on healing from this massive trauma that the city has been going through since May 26, 2017. I want to bring in Zakir Khan with Oregon's chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, I assume you feel satisfied by this verdict here, but we keep getting, to be completely honest with you, all these emails coming in to the station from people saying, quit covering the story, we're done with it. And I understand the fatigue there, but can you kind of talk from the perspective of, communities of color, the people living in Portland who are Muslim, and what this whole incident meant to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is the discrimination and the hate hasn't stopped. This situation that happened didn't suddenly make people realize that the hatred had to stop. And what's happening to our communities all across Oregon and also all across the United States is people are becoming the victims of hate crimes. And that is both directly traumatizing to those communities. It's also vicariously traumatizing where they're seeing these things happen, and then that residual effect is making them afraid in a variety of different aspects of their lives.
Most people, most of our viewers, the people in this city and the surrounding area, aren't filled with hate. They're very kind and nice people, and they're very inclusive, and they love all people. But we hear from this woman, this young girl who's afraid to wear her hijab now, walking through the streets of Portland because of fear. Mm-hmm. What can the good people in this community, the non-hating people, do to help this community heal at this point?
Yeah, I think the critical lesson from this entire situation was to act with courage. And Ricky Best and Talesian Mesh's Namkai Mesh's life, to best honor them, we have to be courageous in moments and create space for people to just simply exist, and then also to be able to live.
Have you spoken to any of the girls involved in this case?
Prior to this case happening, we had them be a part of a panel for the Muslim community to be able to engage with them and learn about their story. Yeah. And through this trial, Demetria Hester has been supported by one of our board members.
All right, Zakir, thank you. Zakir rushed up here from Salem today to talk to us, so I appreciate you being here. Thanks again.
Thank you.
An Oregon man is suing Kaiser for $25 million because he says his brain surgeon removed the good part of his brain instead of the bad part. And now he can't read, he can't write, he can't work, and he probably won't be able to do that stuff ever again.
He knows precisely what happened to him, so he's completely aware that he has these deficits. And so that's embarrassing. It's really debilitating for him. And so he's greatly depressed because of it.
That is Dane Zimmer's lawyer. Now, this lawsuit says that Zimmer went to Kaiser Sunnyside in February of 2018. At the time, he was agitated and confused. He had these headaches. Doctors ended up finding this brain tumor, and they took him into surgery just a couple days later. That's when Zimmer and his lawyer claim a surgeon operated on the wrong part of his brain.
This is not the kind of error that is in any way acceptable. Sometimes there are gray areas in whether or not an error occurred. Doctors aren't perfect, like everyone, but this is like an airline pilot failing to check their landing gear before they take off.
Now, we reached out to Kaiser, of course. They only released a statement, and they were basically talking about how highly rated they are. And, quote, "We will continue working with the family to address their concerns and to resolve the case. Due to patient privacy and litigation, we cannot discuss details of patient care." Now, we have just learned that the Washington guy who was the first person in the U.S. diagnosed with the coronavirus, well, he's all better. How about that? Isn't that great news? Washington, though, really still playing it safe. The state is monitoring nearly 800 other people who could potentially have the disease. Now, that doesn't mean they've been diagnosed or anything. They're just at risk because of maybe where they've traveled or because they've been exposed to someone with the disease. Now, we thought, all right, that's what they're doing in Washington. I wonder what's going on in Oregon. How many people are being monitored here? We tried to find out, but we couldn't, and that's because the Oregon Health Authority won't tell us. They sent us a statement saying under state law, they can't release any information they get while investigating a disease or outbreak. And that apparently includes the number of people being monitored. By the way, they say they will tell us if there are any confirmed cases in Oregon, and so far there aren't any. So apparently we're allowed to know how many people are diagnosed. We're not allowed to know how many people they're keeping an eye on. All right. Somebody who isn't very happy about that is Newt Bueller, the guy trying to take Greg Walden's place as Oregon's only Republican in Congress. He put out this statement here saying, in times of serious disease outbreaks where lives are at stake, government health officials must go the extra mile to share information with the public. Now is not the time to be holding information back. It only breeds distrust. It could cost lives. Hey, let's do a quick update now on cap and trade. You know we love this stuff. We think you do too. We hope you do. We are still waiting right now to see if Republicans plan to walk out over the bill like they did last year. And at this point, it looks like that could happen soon. Cap and trade is scheduled for a work session Monday morning in its committee. If lawmakers pass it out of that committee, it will then go to the Senate floor. And last year, that's exactly what triggered this walkout. It's possible leaders could schedule some more hearings, though, so we're going to have to keep you posted. But we keep seeing these reports out there of Republicans buying plane tickets, preparing to leave the state. We tried to confirm some of that with the Senate Republican office, but they just said everything is, quote, incredibly dynamic. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, while we're waiting for that next step, we want you to go on and check out all of our coverage on cap and trade, man. This is really interesting. Believe me. Stuff like, what would the bill actually do? How much will it actually cost you? That's all on the KGW YouTube page right now. And please keep asking your questions. We love them. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter or reach out to me on my Facebook page. So, funny story for you right now. Last night on the show, we told you about a Department of Corrections worker still making $98,000 a year, even though he was on paid administrative leave. He even got a raise while he was on leave, and he was on leave for 16 months. What a coincidence. Hours before our show and that story, he miraculously got his job back. Wow, what timing. Is almost suspicious. So, Kai Laboshi checked back in with him after he got the news.
This is silly. Now he's hiding and...
Remember this guy?
Yemeno hunter.
The state worker paid $98,000 a year to stay home and play video games?
And they said...
He's headed back to work.
Sign this.
After 16 months on paid administrative leave.
Said, sign it. You know, your investigation made the whole difference in my mind. Because without you shining a spotlight on it, I truly believe I would have been stuck at home for another, probably until I retire in 5 years.
The Oregon Department of Corrections couldn't explain the timing of its decision to reinstate Jamie Cook, which came just hours before our investigative report on state agencies spending millions of dollars a year to have workers stay home while under investigation for alleged misconduct. For example, last year records show the Oregon Department of Corrections spent nearly $500,000 to put 33 of its employees on paid administrative leave. They were out on average 2.5 months. Corrections explained personnel investigations can be complex and take time. Witnesses need to be interviewed, other agencies or police might be involved, and most employees have union representation.
We have a responsibility to treat the employee fairly and to make sure that we are investigating appropriately and not missing anything.
To speed up the process, Oregon may want to look for examples elsewhere. We found state governments around the country have established deadlines requiring personnel investigations to wrap up within a certain time period.
I think a reasonable 90 days, if you can't come up with a reasonable defense or conclusion to guilty or not in 90 days, you need to let the people go back to work.
Jamie is looking forward to returning to work after being stuck at home for more than a year.
Kyle, thank you. So tell me if you've heard this one before, Portland. A classic piece of the city that's been around longer than most of us gets demolished just to be replaced with something new, you know, like an Amazon facility or something. Well, that's exactly what's going to fill this hole in North Portland. Portland Meadows is gone. After 74 years of horse racing and gambling and big hats, it's all gone. And with it, a lot of Portland history. So we took a dip into the KGW vault for you for the heydays of Meadows. We'll be sharing some of this throughout the newscast, but this video here is from 1982. We mentioned Amazon a little earlier. They reportedly want the property. They want to build a 150,000 square foot facility there where Meadows used to be. Amazon has not commented on that yet. When the story continues. It's more than words. It's culture, it's history, it's identity, and it's fading away unless they can do something about it. And should fare be free?
I think it should be something that should be covered by the public.
We get that a lot when we cover TriMet. So if you've ever wondered how much TriMet actually relies on your fare, well, it's a good thing you're watching this story.
It's fun to watch the races, but the real reason people come, let's face it, to win.
I won! The first time I've ever raced. And it came in number 2.
That's wonderful. How much money did you have on him?
$2.
Elizabeth Jane Sins wrote into it. She wants to know, hey, who remembers that old gondola lift from Government Camp to Timberline Lodge back in the 1950s? Well, the KGW Vault remembers.
It flies through the air with the greatest of ease.
How about that? Look at that thing. Mount Hood Skyway. It ran skiers up the mountain from 1956 to 1962. You saw the interesting design there. It was made from a modified city bus. The cable system was old logging equipment. Yeah, seems very safe. KGW's been around for a long time, so we have a lot of old video in our vault. So if you want us to try and find something for you, just let us know. We'll look it up for you. Pick up your phone. Send me an email. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. So this next story, we sat around, we tried to write, how are we going to get you to watch this story? We want to get you interested. But it's one of those ones, honestly, I think you should just take a couple of minutes and pay attention to, because for 20 years, the Grand Ronde tribal community has been fighting to keep its language alive. Pat Doris shows us how.
In Grand Ronde, morning fun time for preschoolers comes with a language that is rarely spoken, even in the Northwest. It's a language that dates back many generations. Developed by Native Americans who spoke it from the California border to Alaska. That's Jeff Mercier, a member of the Grand Ronde tribe and the lead teacher for this immersion class. He's talking to the little ones in Chinook Wawa. That's a trading language that was spoken when the tribes had their own vocabularies and they gathered together. It bridged the gap and allowed for communication and commerce. That anyone can speak it at all is a testament to the determination of the Grand Ronde tribes to keep Chinook Wawa alive. It almost disappeared in the 1950s.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cheryl Kennedy is the tribal chair. She remembers when the federal government disbanded the Grand Ronde in 1954 and tried to assimilate them into mainstream society.
For they must be comfortable while preparing for employment or training.
Get rid of any of the cultural, the native identity, the language, cultural practices, all of that had to go because that was an era that was gone, according to the government.
But in 1983, the tribe reformed and was officially recognized by the federal government. 18 years later, it started classes to bring back the language spoken then only by elders.
I love it.
Holy smokes, man. It's overwhelming to me.
Bobby Mercier helped launch the immersion program.
To be able to grow up with that sense of identity and just have that language within them. It's in all of us, and it's just important for, it was important for me to wake that back up again. So
he remembers hearing his grandmother speak it.
It was something that I wanted and wanted to do, you know, when she was still here. And
the language is a mix of unique sounds and words, along with phrases borrowed from other native tongues and a French word or two tossed in. At TEDx McMinnville last spring, Crystal Star Skabansky, who works at the Grand Ronde, taught the audience to say the word good.
Okay. Now I'll say the other part of the word, and you repeat after me. Oosh, 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 oosh. I think you're advanced. We're ready to combine it. Okay, together, let's say sloosh. Sloosh. Awesome. Now when somebody asks you, how are you? You have a response. Sloosh.
It's part of reclaiming our identity, being prideful in that, and just kind of adding another piece to putting ourselves back together and reclaiming our culture.
It can take time to get fluent. Jeff Mercier, the teacher, started learning 9 years ago.
I'm fairly fluent. I'm fluent in 4-year-old. For sure.
The Grand Ronde started teaching the language as a preschool immersion in 2001. Now it's taught through the 4th grade level. And there's a high school class learning it. And adults can take classes at Lane Community College. The school even posts homework pronouncers on YouTube. The tribe also created an app that anyone can download for free. At Grand Ronde, preschoolers sing to the tribal council in Chinook Wawa. It is more than a nice song.
I come from the generation where we was terminated.
It's a reminder. What was once nearly dead is now very much alive.
It's great to see them, singing and talking in the language, and having that come back, it really means a lot to us as a tribe, that they will carry that on now.
Seems like whenever TriMet comes up on the show, we hear from people who wish it was free. So we're going to get into that. Start drafting your tweets now. Remember, #HeyDan. Plus, when you absolutely, positively don't want people to know that you moved to Oregon from you know where, when the story continues. Let's talk about TriMet. Yes, again, new topic this time, though, I promise. So this is after we told you about this bill that the Oregon House was talking about that would ban police officers from checking fares. That's when Lisa Carol Stiller tweeted at us, and she said, hey, what about the debate over whether TriMet should be fareless? Lisa thinks it should. So do a lot of other people.
It'd be great if it was free somehow, and we didn't have to spend a lot of money trying to police it.
I don't think that public transportation should be something that should be requiring a fee. I think it should be something that should be covered by the public.
So 2 people and Lisa, that equals a lot by news math. TriMet doesn't agree, though. A spokesperson told us it just isn't possible for a transit system of that size to go fare free. Why not, we wondered? Well, mostly because of money. Fare revenue covers 19% of TriMet's budget. If you're wondering if that is a lot, well, TriMet's adopted budget for 2020 is $1.5 billion. Again, we're not great at math, but that's a lot of hot pass tickets. And you might be thinking, isn't TriMet a government agency? Don't they get my tax money? Well, sort of, but basically yes. So legally, TriMet is what you call a municipal corporation. It's a public body. It has a board that is appointed by the governor. It has to follow a lot of the same rules the traditional government agencies have to follow. It could try to issue bonds and taxes to raise revenue, but TriMet tells us really to make the system fare free, to have that happen, they would have to find some kind of new revenue stream to make up for the millions of dollars in fares or make big cuts to service. Now, if you've driven in the city of Portland, maybe ever, you've probably come across this problem. You pull up to an intersection and you can't see a thing because cars are parked all the way up to the stop sign. It is pretty irritating. It's also incredibly dangerous, as a new lawsuit points out. The family of a motorcyclist killed in a crash is suing the city, and they say the city of Portland is failing to keep those intersections safe. Last May, Elijah Coe was riding his motorcycle down East Burnside. A car pulled out from 17th. Coe swerved into oncoming traffic. He was hit head-on and he died. The lawsuit says that the driver who pulled out couldn't see him because the cars were parked in his line of sight. Part of the problem is that the city and state, they have different regulations when it comes to all of this. Now, state law says that cars need to be parked 20 feet away from a crosswalk. It's known as daylighting. It gives a driver a clear line of sight to see some oncoming traffic. But signs on Portland streets often make it seem like you can park right up to the crosswalk, no problem. We found it happening all over the city of Portland. Cars parked legally according to the city's parking signs. Now, we wanted to talk to PBOT about this and wonder why they allow this. They said no, they don't want to talk about it. They cited pending litigation. We asked, hey, can we just talk about it generically? They still said no. Coe's family is asking for almost $6 million in damages and a court order that would force the city of Portland to push those parking zones back at least 20 feet. Hey, keep those comments coming. We want you to talk to us. Use your phone. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Email us. Look me up on Instagram. Whatever it takes. We're going to read some of those comments when we come back after the break. And man, it is rough for a California transplant in Oregon, dude. They're even forced to camouflage their own cars now. We're going to finish the story right after this.
The Wilson High School marching band got people in the mood as they packed their pocketbooks and studied their programs. Inside, people took a quick look at the odds before placing their bets at the mutual windows.
Keeping Portland weird are the steps that Californians take to avoid the wrath of Oregonians. Got the Big O sticker? Check. The Explore sticker? Check. Just hoping people don't tilt their chins down and see those Cali plates. Hey, I'm a transfer too. There we go. Let's get down there. Busted. Be easy on us, folks, please. Also, pick up your phone. Reach into us if you have a weird thing that you've spotted around town. We want to know about it. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Let's get to some people who are doing that just tonight. Somebody writing in about Pat's story saying, hey, great story on the Grand Ronde language. That was amazing. I agree. Pat does fantastic work. The Vault got a lot of play tonight with both Portland Meadows and with the flying bus that we showed earlier. Somebody saying in TW saying, more flying buses, please. I couldn't agree more. As far as the historic Portland Meadows, where is the sign? That's what Paul wants to know. That's a good question. We might look into that. Paul also saying, shouldn't your show be called The Stories, plural? Because you do more than just one. Blowing my mind, dude. You're right. I'm going to have to workshop that. Thank you for being part of The Stories tonight. Laurel Porter's coming up next with the 6:30.